It's so wild working from Giotto because you start seeing Giotto everywhere, even in the market building. The form looks like a Giotto building. Well, my name is Alison Hall, and I grew up in a little small town of Martinsville, Virginia, where there wasn't much of anything art-related, and I was just always drawing as a child. I don't know, reflecting on that, I think it was probably in response to living kind of in a very mundane world, and kind of drawing or books kind of led me out of that kind of world. I was such a reader as a young woman, and I really loved poetry, and so I went to school thinking that I would really love to be a poet, and I don't know how that arrived in my mind, because I come from a working class family where, you know, to be an artist or to be a poet isn't something that's labor intensive enough. I don't know. Like it didn't even occur to me that I could be an artist or that I could be a painter as a profession, and I remember kind of my first painting class, and everyone was going around the room, and this very kind of hip young woman from California said, well, I want to be a poet and a painter. And I thought, well, I do too. So anyways, I went to Italy for 1 month as a young student, getting my undergraduate degree, and then when I was in graduate school, had the opportunity to go back and live there for like a 4-month period. I think part of the pull of going to Italy is going there because of going there because of the artists that have lived and traveled there to make work for a very specific reason, the light and the history of painting that's there. And that was my original pull to go to Italy, was to go and paint in the landscape where people like Corot had painted. And it's really important to go visit these sites where these old frescoes are, and a lot of those places include frescoes made by Giotto or Masaccio or Fra Angelico. So kind of like these pilgrimages to go see these works of art inside of these very holy places. But oddly enough, I'm not going there for the religious aspect of it. I mean, I think the religion of like going to visit these paintings, like that's the religion of my journey and why I'm going there, not because I'm some fanatic, about religion. Painting as a religion, maybe, but the church in Assisi that they say it's attributed to Giotto. These paintings are attributed to Giotto, and I have this big book over there, and it has the images from Assisi in it, and it says Giotto on the book. So it's like I think there are historians out there that believe they're not Giottos or they are Giotto. Who knows? But whoever painted them, they're really phenomenal things. And so I go to Assisi to visit these frescoes every year, and the frescoes in Assisi are interesting because when you go in, there are these kind of like 2 sections all the way around the church, and they are a narrative that has a beginning and an end. But the ones that I'm interested in are the narrative of St. Francis. Although I'm interested in the kind of idea of St. Francis as this kind of pure heart and humble man, the thing I'm really interested in are the paintings as paintings. And so when I'm looking at them, what my experience is about painting. The things I'm interested in as a painter when I'm looking at these frescoes are the kind of like geometric divisions of the scenes. So when I'm sitting there looking at these frescoes, I'm seeing minimal paintings from the 1950s in America. I'm seeing contemporary painting inside of something that's from the 1300s. And it's just really exciting for me that as an artist, as anyone that's a creative person, I think you start moving through the world looking for things that relate to your interest, even in places that seem devoid of things you may be interested in. So when I'm looking at the frescoes, I'm seeing geometric divisions. and pattern and repetition. And that's something that really fascinates me with the Giotto paintings, is just how interested he was in pattern. I mean, the pattern is just incredible. And I'm also thinking a lot about the process of working on something so massive. I'm thinking about the workers, and I know it's not just Giotto. I know it's his bottega or his workshop of painters making these things. And the amount of work involved is just incredible. I mean, the things that I'm presenting at the Taubman have tons of work, tons of hours and labor involved. And so I can really connect with that. And I think probably my background of my family being laborers, blue-collar workers, I'm really aware of labor and the amount of work involved.
Yeah. But yet repetition is something that I think relates to, my family's work in farms and factories, or my interest in Eastern religions, or meditation, or a type of kind of devotional activity, or even how some kind of even something as unimportant as sanding something over and over can be kind of filled with intention.
I think the ability for the human mind to take any kind of situation and process or even mundane work. I don't know. I think about factory workers or my family all the time, and just thinking like, how does one survive that kind of lifestyle or working? And I think the ability for the human mind to transform even the most mundane act into something more poetic or more beautiful is like the way of surviving, or making life more interesting. So I hope people get a sense of that when you look at the work.
People who are not artists, let's say, I think can connect to the work because of the amount of labor involved. I think anyone that goes in and sees the floor piece, even the drawings that they look at, or the painting, I think when you start looking past the veil of white and you're seeing all of these intricately drawn patterns, one section of pattern this big has taken hours and hours and hours to make, and that's just the drawing. That doesn't even include the painting of the piece. So I think that's the connection that just even a non-artist can make to the work. I think trying to elevate something that's so simple into something that's very special, and I think that's something I've always been interested in. I think growing up in a place that was so kind of lackluster, and you're always looking for ways to make something seem more important or poetic. It's a really amazing idea that something as simple as, this panel that I built out of plywood and covered with plaster and graphite and oil paint has somehow been elevated into a devotional experience. I think it's just really incredible that something as simple as wood and paint has kind of like transcended. I think that's just for me, that's just a really powerful experience. I think that's the beautiful thing about artists, is that we're taking these very, sometimes disparate ideas, things that don't make sense together, and trying to make them into a new metaphor. And I think that's the amazing thing about being an artist.